Welcome back to Skytech-Lens. Imagine this. A world where a simple glass of whiskey could bring two countries together, where every bottle on the shelf was a quiet promise of friendship and shared history. Deep in the rolling hills of Tennessee and Kentucky, thousands of oak barrels are filled with American whiskey, each one crafted with care and destined for Canada, a journey that's been happening for generations. For years, whiskey flowed north, money flowed south. A simple, happy story of trade. It was a system that worked, supporting families, businesses, and communities on both sides of the border. But in 2025, everything changed. The calendar turned, and with it, the rules of the game. Trucks loaded with whiskey suddenly had nowhere to go. The border, once open and welcoming, became a wall overnight, halting the flow of goods and dreams. The problem wasn't the whiskey, it was politics. Decisions made in distant capitals now echoed through every warehouse and distillery. The US imposed new tariffs on Canadian goods. Canada retaliated, targeting American whiskey, turning a friendly rivalry into a bitter standoff. Suddenly, a symbol of friendship became a casualty of a trade war. The clink of glasses was replaced by the sound of deals breaking. Provincial liquor boards ordered stores to stop buying and selling American whiskey. Every brand, big and small, vanished from shelves almost overnight. American distillers, who'd spent years preparing for Canadian customers, were left with warehouses full of unsellable whiskey, their hopes gathering dust. The toast meant to unite two nations was canceled. Glasses remained untouched, and celebrations faded into silence. In Tennessee, one distiller stared at 25,000 bottles with nowhere to go, each one a reminder of a deal that vanished. These weren't just numbers, they were lost money, broken promises, and livelihoods put at risk. Contracts were worthless. The supply chain, from farmers to truckers, ground to a halt, leaving entire communities in limbo. This wasn't just a trade dispute anymore, it was a crisis that touched real people, real jobs, and real dreams. It was an economic crisis for an entire industry, triggered by a political fight gone out of control with no easy solution in sight. The whiskey that once celebrated friendship now marked a bitter divide, its story rewritten by forces far beyond the distiller's control. The impact rippled far beyond the distilleries, reaching into small towns, local shops, and family homes across the continent, and all of it started with a single, unexpected tariff, a decision that changed the fate of thousands, and a toast that never happened. How did we get here? The story of the US-Canada trade war is one of escalating tensions, unexpected policy shifts, and deep economic consequences for both nations. It all began with aggressive US trade policies under President Trump, who promised to put America first and shake up long-standing trade relationships. Heavy tariffs, sometimes reaching up to 35%, were suddenly slapped on a wide range of Canadian products, bypassing the spirit of existing trade agreements like NAFTA. Even Canadian steel and aluminum, which are vital to both economies and deeply integrated into North American supply chains, face tariffs as high as 50%. This sent shockwaves through industries on both sides of the border. The justification? National security, a claim that baffled Canada, America's close ally and defense partner for generations. Many saw it as a political move rather than a genuine threat. Then came another blow. The US abolished the de minimis rule, meaning even the smallest online purchases from Canada now face steep duties, catching consumers and small businesses off guard. Postal services worldwide, unable to navigate the new and confusing system, halted shipments to the US altogether, leaving packages stranded and customers frustrated. The goal was clear: pressure Canada into making concessions by making trade not only expensive, but also complicated and unpredictable for everyone involved. Tariffs hit both raw materials and finished goods, making Canadian products uncompetitive in the US market, and causing shortages and price hikes for American consumers. Canada was forced into a corner, needing to respond carefully to protect its economy without making things worse or escalating the conflict further. The stage was set for a full-scale economic confrontation, with both sides bracing for the fallout and uncertainty that lay ahead. And the fallout would be felt on both sides of the border, affecting businesses, workers, and families in ways no one could have fully predicted. Canada didn't back down. Instead of quietly accepting the blow, the country decided to make its own statement on the world stage. It struck back with a nationwide boycott of American whiskey, a move that sent shockwaves through both industries and governments. Provincial liquor boards ordered every bottle off the shelves, no exceptions, no delays. The shelves were cleared almost overnight. The message was unmistakable. If US trade policy was hostile, so were Canada's stores. The impact was immediate and impossible to ignore. Viral videos and photos flooded social media, showing empty shelves where Jack Daniel's and Maker's Mark once stood. Canadians debated the boycott online, while Americans watched in disbelief. The LCBO alone used to sell over $700 million in American spirits and wine each year. Practically overnight, that business vanished, leaving suppliers scrambling. By mid-2025, American producers lost $500 million in revenue, a staggering sum that rippled through the industry. U.S. liquor sales to Canada dropped over 12%, with shipments slowing to a trickle at border crossings that once bustled with trade. For whiskey, the fall was catastrophic. Exports plunged 62% in just 6 months. Distilleries that once ran around the clock now sat eerily quiet. American wine exports to Canada fell nearly 67%. Warehouses filled with unsold cases, and vineyards faced mounting losses. The boycott was targeted, hitting politically sensitive states like Kentucky and California the hardest, regions where the whiskey and wine industries are economic lifelines. Kentucky lost $19 million in bourbon exports, a blow that sent shockwaves through local economies and small towns. California's wineries lost $173 million, forcing layoffs and leaving grapes unharvested in the fields. Small distilleries like Sagamore Spirit in Maryland lost their entire Canadian market, threatening their survival and the jobs they supported. The boycott wasn't just symbolic, it was a calculated economic blow, designed to hit where it hurt most and force a response. Trade is a two-way street, and Canada proved it could close the door just as quickly as it could open it. The U.S. spirits industry was left reeling, with workers and executives alike facing an uncertain future. The message was clear. Economic pain cuts both ways, and retaliation can be swift and severe. The whiskey boycott became a powerful symbol of the new trade reality, sparking debate and protest on both sides of the border. And the cost was staggering, leaving a lasting mark on the industry and the relationship between two trading giants. The pain didn't stop at distilleries. American farmers who supplied corn, barley, and rye for whiskey suddenly had nowhere to sell their crops. Distillers broke contracts, leaving farmers with unsellable surpluses. Grain prices collapsed, and many farmers faced bankruptcy. The supply chain unraveled. Glassmakers, label printers, trucking companies, and warehouses all saw orders dry up. Every canceled bottle represented a broken link in the economic chain. Layoffs hit bottling plants, distribution centers, and marketing teams. In small towns, the loss of distillery jobs was devastating. The industry pleaded with Washington for relief, but the damage was done. The trade war meant to help American workers was bankrupting them instead. The ripple effects were felt in every corner of rural America. As the trade war escalated, the US and Canada took very different approaches. President Trump doubled down on tariffs, betting America's size would force Canada to yield. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney responded with precision, targeted boycotts, and selective tariffs. The whiskey ban was symbolic and strategic, hitting key U.S. regions and making headlines. Canada also lifted some tariffs, like on fruit juice, to ease pressure and show willingness to negotiate. Carney's approach was calm and calculated, maintaining the moral high ground. Meanwhile, Canada worked to reduce its reliance on the U.S., forging new trade ties with Europe and beyond. While America built walls, Canada built bridges. It was a chess match, one side flipping the board, the other playing for the long game. Ironically, the trade war sparked a boom in some Canadian industries. With American goods now expensive, Canadian companies turned to domestic suppliers. A Quebec can manufacturer saw sales double, prompting a new factory in Ontario and over 100 new jobs. Canadian steel producers also benefited as local firms sourced materials at home. U.S. tariffs meant to hurt Canada ended up strengthening its industrial base. Even when the U.S. abolished the de minimis rule, Canada Post adapted, creating a system to keep small businesses shipping to the U.S. While other countries gave up, Canadian entrepreneurs found ways to survive. The crisis forced innovation and resilience. Canada's response turned obstacles into opportunities. The trade war's unintended consequence: a stronger, more self-sufficient Canadian industry. Sometimes adversity breeds advantage. Not all U.S. industries benefited from tariffs. The steel industry, protected by 50% tariffs, saw prices soar, making American steel the world's most expensive. U.S. automakers like PACCAR faced skyrocketing costs, losing ground to foreign competitors. Experts predicted an 11% drop in U.S. auto production. The copper market fared no better. Tariffs drove prices up 35%, raising costs for manufacturers and fueling a wave of copper theft. Nearly $2 billion in damages came from stolen copper wire. Beyond industry, American tourism suffered. Canadian visitors, once vital to cities like Las Vegas, disappeared. Hotels, restaurants, and shops lost millions in revenue. The trade war's costs rippled through every sector. Policies meant to protect American jobs ended up hurting them. The economic pain was deeper and broader than anyone expected. The lesson: trade wars rarely go as planned. As losses mounted, both sides realized the trade war was unsustainable. Canada made the first move, lifting some retaliatory tariffs, a signal to Washington. Talks resumed. US and Canadian officials met in August 2025, breaking months of silence. No breakthroughs, but the tone shifted. Dialogue replaced hostility. Both sides knew the longer the conflict dragged on, the harder it would be to repair. New factories and lost markets wouldn't simply revert if tariffs ended. Diplomats now faced a tough task, finding a way for both countries to save face and move forward. For American whiskey producers, the hope was simple: end the boycott and start rebuilding trust. Looking back, there were no real winners in this trade war. The US tried to protect steel and aluminum but ended up hurting its own distillers, farmers, and automakers. Canada showed resilience but paid a price in uncertainty and disruption. The US-Canada relationship, once a model of trust, was strained. Both sides learned that trade is about more than products. It's about relationships. The scars will linger, and lost markets may never fully return. The main legacy of this conflict? A costly lesson in the dangers of economic brinkmanship. In the end, the only thing this trade war produced was a massive hangover for everyone involved. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more updates.